Alrighty, welcome in to this episode of Farz Cast. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me just double check and make sure we are broadcasting this properly. I had some tech issues before we started, so yes, I do see we are live on Facebook. We tried to do Facebook and Instagram, but the whole thing was a mess. But we'll just keep it we'll just keep it on Facebook for now. But nonetheless, people listening to the podcast version don't even know what the hell's going on. Welcome in, everyone. My name is Farzin Vousoughian. Welcome into this episode of Farz Cast. Hope you guys are doing well. Been a couple of weeks since I've last done a podcast. The last one, Zach and DJ joined me. You guys all know who Zach and DJ are. They're regulars on this podcast. Zach's been with me for a while. We did a lot of episodes of the Chiefs Zone together. And then before that, we had Jimmy Chavez, who was with Jayhawk IMG and Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio. So some really good podcasts lately. Definitely check them out if you guys get a chance. A lot of good content on those podcasts. But on this episode right now, joining me, as you see in the title, author and educator Melody McAllister is here with me. She also does her own live cast on her Facebook pages. So go look up Melody McAllister, and you'll find her live broadcast on there, talking to a lot of people in and around education. Melody, what's going on? Welcome back.
Hey, Farzin, it's so good to be back. And it's so funny. I learned a lot about Instagram in the last 45 minutes, but it's great to come on your show again. I absolutely love you. If I could make you my little brother, I would adopt you if that were possible. So thanks for having me back.
This narrative changed real fast. You used to say that I am your brother. Now you're saying if I could, I would make you my brother.
No, I mean legally. If I could legally do it,
okay.
I would. You are my little brother.
The problem is
a different mother and
father.
Well,
people don't know this, but Melody and I, we were on Maury and sitting right next to each other. I'm worst day of my life. Maury looked at me straight in the eyes and said, "You are the brother." And Melody was celebrating and dancing. I was pissed off. I went backstage and, I flipped off a few of the camera guys. I tossed a chair across the room. I think I broke something. I don't know. So yeah, Melody, I am Melody's little brother, contrary to popular belief.
That's right. It's legal. It's blood. It's DNA. You can't dispute that. Not if it's been on Maury. So cheers.
What are you, I just saw you lift your glass. What are you drinking? I'm drinking a Boulevard Ginger Lemon Radler.
I am drinking a bourbon whiskey, and I forgot what brand it is because I'm trash.
Oh, well, that's okay. Cheers to that.
Woo!
Anything exciting in the news today?
Hello. A lot of exciting things are happening today. We could have been preparing for the worst, but most of my friends anyway, are celebrating. We are so glad to see that the police officer that murdered George Floyd, he was guilty on all 3 charges against him. Yes. I don't even want to say his name, but I will say that his last name is a lot like chauvinist, which I think is not too far off. But yeah, it's a celebration. My kids and I, we watched a lot of it. We were not home when the guilty verdict was declared, but we got home, we started watching it. That was our social studies for the day. We talked a lot about it. So I just want to say that, this is something that, kids can talk about. Certainly white kids anyway. Some kids don't have the choice. This is their life every day. This is stuff that's happening. So anyway, I just want to put that out there because I'm an educator. And even last year when we were watching Minneapolis burn, and my 11-year-old was watching with me, my husband's like, "Don't you think she's a little young to be watching this?" And I'm like, "No, this is real life. This is what she needs. This is her history too." And today is a victory. It's not just for a victory for people of color. It is a victory for all of us who believe in equality and equal rights. I'm sure we'll get some comments. A lot of people are hateful. I've even seen people on yours, whenever you talk about it, just talk about this, that this is shit work and all sorts of crap like that. It's so hard
I don't really care about those people. It is, you know me. Listen, you know me very well.
I know you don't. But it irritates me.
My block button has gotten quite a nice workout today. Let's put it that way. Look, I mean, listen. Some people are angry, but a lot of people are very happy. I've even seen, listen, I don't know why everything has to be everything has to be politically driven today, like even sports. So like this Saturday, for instance, you're not a UFC fan, are you?
Not really.
Okay, so there's a fighter, George Masvidal. He's a Trump supporter, and he's fighting this week, and it's like people are only watching just to cheer for him, and just because his political stances align with theirs. It's like, listen, I've never rooted for anybody because my politics align with theirs. I've never done that once. I've never, purchased a brand of clothes or food or anything because of that. I just I've never understood that. But my point is, I think people were trying to
So
pick a side with this whole George Floyd situation only for political reasons, and it's like, why? Like, we need to start thinking for ourselves. We really do. And listen, there was a conservative talk host on Fox News who even said this. It's like, stop worrying so much about these politicians, because we obsess over them for whatever weird reason, but we know they don't give a damn about us. It's like, we need to speak for ourselves and be obsessed with ourselves before anyone else.
agreed, my friend. Also, George Floyd was a man. He was a father. He was a brother. He was a friend. Oh my gosh, like an innocent man was murdered. Like, let's use the right terms. He was murdered. And, everybody, they'll throw him under the bus and try to trash his character, but it doesn't matter. He didn't deserve to die the way that he died. It was horrific, and it doesn't matter what side you are on politically, except that I'm getting really, really tired of the conservative side trying to like act like this is okay, because I'm over that. But regardless of the politics, this was a human being, one of many, who was murdered in his prime. It doesn't matter if he wasn't, a perfect human being. None of us are. How many of us have family members who struggled with the same things that he was? I mean, I hate how it's like a pattern. And my daughter, my 12-year-old today, because again, we were watching it, she said, and we were talking about the precedent and how it's so hard to see people be convicted of murder when they're a police officer. And she's like, why is this just now a precedent? And it's just such a good question, because it should have been a precedent 100 years ago already, but more than 100 years ago. But our racism is showing, and we have to grab that. We have to work through it. This was a win for all of us.
Listen, I tweeted a series of videos showing so many incidents where white people who are being malicious and violent, they don't face a single bullet. There was even one where one man was shouting at police officers saying, "You're gonna die," like they're being very vulgar too. And I mean, these people are
Hmm.
not facing a single bullet. There's one people need to Google this or look it up on YouTube. There's a gentleman named Jerry York. He is resisting arrest from two police officers, grabs one of their nightsticks and actually starts hitting. One of them is a female cop. He actually hit the female cop right on the breast line and is just hammering away as
Wow.
hard as he can. And it's like, this person, and by the way, he stole a cop car, drove off, and intentionally drove into another cop car and injured a total of three police officers. They didn't face a single bullet.
And
So
he's
listen,
still alive. And he's still
well,
alive.
here's the thing. If you remember what happened on January 6th at the Capitol, I mean, you saw
Hmm.
what happened, and there was not a lot of gunfire. And I can't remember who this was, but there was an NFL player saying, "We are not asking you to shoot them like you shoot us. We are asking you to not
Right.
shoot them like you do not for us as well."
Exactly.
Um, you know, here's the thing. I think a lot of people get very uncomfortable because, okay, my page is mostly sports. I get it. But I guess when a topic like this comes up, I saw the NFL release a statement. So many people got upset. Like, why is the NFL talking about this? This is absolutely a sports subject. And I don't agree with everything Colin Kaepernick did with the pick socks and all of that. But the reason this George Floyd incident was such a big deal, especially with Colin Kaepernick's name, you compared the two kneeling. And by the way, anybody who says, "Oh, they're both offensive," no, they're not. Just stop right there. um like
Right.
when Kaepernick and Siobhan, when they put the kneeling side by side, it's like, look, if you're outraged by Kaepernick and you're not more outraged by
Yes.
the other one, then we've got issues. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that have a bigger issue with Kaepernick than what Siobhan did.
Let's say this. If you have an issue with Kaepernick, but you don't have an issue with the clown murderer that was found guilty today, your racism is showing, you know? And here's the truth. We all have prejudice inside of us. We all have bias. You know, a few years ago, when one of another, I think it was Michael Brown, when all of that was blowing up, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, here we go again. And I failed to see his humanity because I was on the other side. I'm just like completely trying to make it okay because in my mind I didn't want to talk about all the holes and hypocrisy that I was seeing. You know, it took, and that was probably when I started to realize, oh my God, this guy was a human, and I'm already just shutting off the TV because I don't want to see all of this again. My racism was showing. I can say that now, and I say that because I know a lot of the people in my life, it's something that we go through. We're white, you know, we've always lived on one side. We've used our privilege for a long time. You know, we have to address it. We have to accept it. We have it, you know, and let's use it to dismantle it for the. We talked about that with my kids. I'm not being great right now with my words, but I mean, it's real life. Let's talk about it so that we can fight it, bring it down, and truly be equal. It's going to take a really long time, but like with my friends that I've talked about, you know, we can't keep starting over every single new generation. You know, this has lasted long enough. You know, it's time for equality under the eyes of the law, especially in every single system, just like, you know, the president and vice president were saying today.
I didn't get a chance to listen to that. I'll have to
It was
watch it a
good.
little later. By the way, did you see what Nancy Pelosi said?
I didn't, and I'm not a big fan of hers, but what did she say?
I don't know anyone who is a big fan of hers. She said, I want to thank George Floyd for sacrificing his life for justice. I'm like, what?
Ugh.
And then you have, Greg Gutfield on Fox News. He goes, the reason I'm glad I'm paraphrasing, but basically he was saying he was glad about the decision that was made just for the pure fact he did not want looting. And listen, I wrote a post about this, and for some reason, like people were still upset about this. You can condemn police brutality and you can condemn looting and rioting. I don't understand this whole notion that you have to pick one side. Like, when did we have to pick side? You know what side I'm on? I'm on a side where like everybody is wrong. You're all a bunch of idiots. You don't know what you're talking about. But for some reason, it's like that's a very small group of people, like you, me, and a few other people. And I'm saying few because there aren't a lot of people like this. We each have like our own little circle where we just like we reject every motion out there. I mean, listen, I think everyone know. If you follow me on social media, you know who I voted for. But I didn't vote for this person because I think they're so glorious and great. And listen, this is 2 presidential elections in a row where we've had terrible candidates. I'm not saying one is way better than the other.
Agreed.
But that's a topic for
Drink
another
to that
time.
one.
Yes, straight to that one. But look, it's just we get so caught up in this whole realm of politics, like this George Floyd thing was political. Listen, if Donald Trump comes out and says, Netflix is horrible, then all of a sudden we're going to see people boycott Netflix. I say boycott, but people said that about the NFL. Look what happened. You remember what happened with Gina Carano, right? So because she was removed
No.
from Gina Carano, you don't know who that is? Okay.
No, educate me.
She's a former MMA fighter, but she's more well known recently for being in Star Wars as the Mandalorian, which is exclusively on Disney Plus. Fantastic series. They just wrapped up their 2nd season. I want to say 2 or 3 months ago. I could be wrong, but it's a fantastic show. If you're into Star Wars, it's definitely something you should definitely.
I'm not.
Watch. Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. But she was talking about cancel culture recently, and she said,
Yes.
Republicans today are like Jewish people during the Holocaust. She made that comparison. Disney did not like that. They actually removed her completely from the show. And all of a sudden, it's like conservatives were against Disney and they wanted to boycott Star Wars and Disney Plus, and liberals were all in favor of it. The Cat in the Hat and Dr. Seuss has now turned into a political thing. Like, I don't know what's happening to us as a nation where every single thing, like, I am looking into an Apple product right now. Okay. I am worried that this Apple product will one day be politicized.
Well, I I can tell you a little bit about Dr. Seuss. Like I've been aware of that for a few years. So he was racist and he admitted it at the end of his life. He was a changed person, and I believe I was pretty racist. I believe that if I can change, good people can change. It's okay to learn and change. Like, stop being blinded by your church, stop being blinded by your political party. Like, just look at your fellow human being, regardless of color, gender, orientation, of anything, and just see them as a freaking human, and that they're worthwhile. I mean, and if you can do that, you can change. You to believe all the truly fake news. The culture, are older, the people that we're supposed to be respecting. But Dr. Seuss even talked about how his earlier works were racist. He said it and he apologized for it. So the fact that some of those books are being, taken off the shelves, good. That means that we're doing better. We're improving. We should care what is offensive to other people. That's how you dismantle this whole system in the first place. Talking about how racism is in every single public sector out there in our education. That's one way we're doing better, when we take off work, or take out, anything, any curriculum, any book that is traumatizing to other people or has that. And we may have to, completely transform that, because there's a lot of stuff that's tied into racism and white supremacy in every single system, especially our education system. And we need to change that. I mean, that's never been more obvious than it is now. I'm going to
Um,
drink to that.
yes, please do. By the way, I have to go back to the whole George Floyd, the trial that took place, and we obviously heard the decision Tuesday afternoon. I don't know if you saw this. I think I talked to you about this earlier today when we were on the phone. But the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, they tweeted a photo, basically a meme. Well, I don't want to call it a meme. It's a photo with words in it. It says, "I can't," excuse me, "I can breathe," with today's date for 2021. A lot of people are lashing out on the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are getting dragged because George Floyd obviously cannot breathe right now. I mean, it's a little obvious why. I've seen a lot of NFL players, both current and former players, criticize the Raiders for this. The owner of the Raiders, Mark Davis, he I guess he just did an interview with someone, and he claims he is responsible for this tweet, which I do not believe. Owners do not create these kinds of things. But he claims responsibility for it, and he says the tweet will not be deleted. It's been up for a couple of hours now. Did you have a chance to see this, or did you hear the reactions to all of this?
Just just from you, I didn't. I can look it up on my Twitter right now. But what is the main? Is the complaint because George Floyd is dead and can't breathe?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like I think the Raiders meant well with this message. Like, I'm sure they had a good intent, but like, this is not the message. Okay, like, this is, maybe you could have, I don't know, just said accountability or something. Like, I get it. They want to just use a couple of words to make a big statement, and I think they chose the wrong words in this case.
Right.
They
Okay. And I was going to look at the Raiders, but honestly, who wants to follow the Raiders? Like, I don't follow the Raiders, and I'm not going to start right now.
well,
So anyway,
the running joke
I'm
right
a
now
Chiefs
is
fan, for crying out loud.
that the Raiders do everything wrong. So there's that.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to say this as somebody who is honestly acknowledged that I am a person that is learning how to be more anti-racist, because I have an upbringing and in a very white supremacist culture. Okay, and I'm not afraid to say that, and I say all of this because I hope it helps somebody else out there know that they can change. When we decide to be an ally or to stand up against racism, and we learn, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're going to make so many mistakes. And the thing is that when we make bad decisions that are more hurtful, we have to be genuine. We say we are sorry, and the Raiders should take that down. If a lot of people are saying this is not right and it's just it's not a good thing, take it down and just say, you know what, it was bad taste, and just be genuine about it and go on. And that's what people will remember. Because when you decide to do better and be better, you're going to make mistakes. It's a human thing. We're humans. So just, apologize and learn from it and keep growing.
Well,
Raiders.
I, w- I want to go off what you were saying about, trying to be better. Listen, I was one of those people when I first heard Black Lives Matter. And again, I think the message got very, it was crossed and people didn't get the full message. And I think part of it is because I mentioned earlier, Kaepernick, I didn't agree with everything he was saying in the beginning with the pig socks and all. I was one of those people who said, why do Black Lives Matter? All lives matter. But I think after some time,
Mhm.
when you see the incidents and you notice a very obvious pattern, you think, okay, they're not saying your life doesn't matter. In fact, it used to be called Black Lives Matter
Exactly.
too. A lot of people don't know that. It's one of those things where, are we just not wanting to listen? Or are we? I was actually having this conversation with some people on social media today, and it was a good, rational, logical conversation. Look, why are we at this point where there is so much fighting and looting and rioting? Is any of it right? No. No logical person is going to defend any of that. However, if you want to criticize looting and rioting, if you want to criticize kneeling during the national anthem, look, you're allowed to. First of all, I strongly agree with the rioting and looting. As far as the kneeling for the anthem, look, I think you can still be logical and say, hey, look, I disagree with kneeling for the anthem, but hear me out here. The problem is athletes were wearing T-shirts during pregame warmups. They would put their hands up walking onto the field. They would speak out on social media. People were peacefully protesting and speaking up on these matters. The problem is, rather than listening to them, so many people mocked them, made fun of them, and didn't want to hear them out. And unfortunately, their frustrations just escalated, and that's where we are today. We have a movement called defund the police, which I strongly disagree with, but because no one wanted to listen to them for so long, they felt the need to bring this and make this their movement. Again, I don't agree with defunding the police or rioting. I don't know any logical person who agrees with rioting and looting. I've seen people defend it, which is just disgusting. You can, again, like I said earlier, you can still say both sides are wrong. I don't know why people are picking sides, but this is why we are here, because I know a lot of people think today is a victorious day. I don't really view it that way, because I view it, it opens the door to make sure we make more progress, because we have a lot of room to grow. We still do. And you can
We
tell
do.
judging by some of the reactions tonight.
Exactly. And for all the groups that are so upset about protests and are like stick to sports and all that other BS. I mean, again, all I can say is your racism is showing. If you can't get into line and let people use their own platforms as human beings and voice their thoughts that are in their mind, the support for their teammates, their friends, their family members, themselves, like your racism is showing. And that's what it all comes down to. If you can't watch football because they're finally saying that we're going to do everything that we can to show that Black Lives Matter, your racism is showing. It's not about politics, it's about humanity. And I
Oh,
just want, I
100%.
do, this is my friend Hedrick. My friend Hedrick wrote this book, and I did a book chat with her a couple of weeks ago. This is a children's book. If you have no idea what Black Lives Matter it means, what the movement is, get it. It's really cheap. It's on Amazon, and it's for kids, so you're going to understand it. I've read it with my own kids, and it's not what everybody. It's not a terrorist organization. You know, it is just like you said. All lives cannot matter until Black lives and every other life matters too. All lives cannot matter until we stop marginalizing others. Now, I don't know if that day will ever come to pass. Just like we're such a corrupt, human like species. And I've been watching a lot of end of the world movies with my husband lately, and a lot of is like humans are evil. We're going to destroy your earth, all this stuff. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if we're worth saving. I do have hope. I have hope though.
Well, listen, as a Middle Eastern, I've come across, racist comments over the years. By the way, you hardly get any more of those face to face. It's once in a while I get it on social media, and you always, you know, ask yourself the question: would this person even say this face to face? No, of course not. Come on.
Right.
But no, look, yeah, listen, like I said, as a Middle Eastern, I'm fully supportive of this notion of Black Lives Matter because I get it. Black people have been ridiculed for a long time just because of the color of their skin. I've been judged just because I'm not, a white American. Sorry, that's just not the way I was born. Unfortunately, we're all different. I say unfortunately, I sarcastically, by the way. But look, I do want to go back to what you were saying about the whole stick to sports notion with athletes and all. I think it's so funny because when um, we mentioned the national anthem, okay, what's the biggest complaint you've heard about the national anthem protesting? You've heard that a lot of people were saying, "Do it at your own time." Or let me step back. Actually, they said, "Don't do it during the anthem." Okay, do you remember the first game of the year when the Chiefs and the Texans were getting ready to play? They got together at midfield right before kickoff for a moment of unity. Not the national, it was not the national anthem, and there was no kneeling.
Mm-hmm.
They just locked arms like this. Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson were next to each other. Several of the key players were, up front in the middle. And there were a lot of people online who hated that. So it's not about the national anthem. It's
Right.
clearly the message. By the way, the other criticism, people have said, do it at your own time, protest at your own time. Okay. When the George Floyd incident did happen last year, Patrick Mahomes, Tyrann Mathieu, and several other black players in the NFL got together and they made an NFL Black Lives Matter video. Their own time, no national anthem, no game time, nothing. This was their
Right.
own time. They're doing it at their own house, just like how you and I are in our homes right now. Still got criticized for it. So it doesn't matter. Like, this is just further proof now. The national anthem was never, ever the real issue. It was the message. People just didn't like it. And it wasn't even a Black Lives Matter message to begin with. It was just a message against police brutality. So again, this is why we're here. This is why we're seeing so much of the negativity, the hate, the violence, the looting, which again, none of it I am for. And I know you're not either, but I'm just explaining that is why we're here, because nobody wanted to listen in the beginning.
And I'm not even okay. So it's crazy because I spent time in Portland this weekend, and there was another black man who was gunned down by police on Friday night when I was there. And so I was at a salon. I was at the salon the day before getting my eyebrows done, and then I went to the salon the next day to get my hair done. And I do that on vacation because I have 5 kids and I can do that. Okay. But when I went there the next day, just a few feet away from where I was getting my hair done, there was broken glass. It had been, and my hairstylist was saying that, it had, been a year since everybody was right. Like this last year in Portland downtown, there's been rioting. It's in the news, obviously.
Yeah.
But they were surprised it took that long for their glass to finally get bricks, And so when I was getting my hair done, they started putting up the plywood just, 10 feet away from me, in downtown Portland. And it was just a very surreal moment. And even last year when everything started, I can't judge. Like, of course, I don't want to see that. Nobody in the community wants to see that. But when you have been oppressed since this country began, before this country began, who are we to judge? There is so much anger, and the anger is continued to be fed by all of these people who are resisting any sort of balance and unity, that are just so afraid to change anything. And let's just get to the reality of the national anthem. If you read the lyrics of the entire national anthem, it is also racist. Our country was built on free labor, and we are founded on a lot of racist beliefs. And I mean, we just can't get away from that. We just have to accept that we have to do better. It doesn't mean that we're horrible people. It doesn't mean that we are to blame. Once we realize our parts in the perpetuation of this, that's when it becomes obvious of what we do next. Okay. And if we want to have a better nation, if we want to have a unified nation, it's up to each of us. It takes all of us. It takes every single, person of color, of every color. I just, it is the time now to change, and it's the time to let go of all of these just these beliefs that it wasn't our fault and that other people did it. It doesn't matter. History is history. Let's do better, and let people protesting peacefully, let them. Jeez.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's
Well,
learn from them.
no, no. I don't disagree with a lot of what you said there. I did want to say one other thing. Excuse me, about the stick to sports thing. Colby Covington. I mentioned earlier the UFC. Covington is a huge Trump supporter, and again, he's allowed to feel that way. He's allowed to support him, but when he would constantly bring up Trump during his fights, like before and after his fights, because in the UFC, you get interviewed after your fights, especially if you win. And I remember his last fight, he was like, Donald Trump's going to make America great again. He's going to destroy Joe Biden in the election, which didn't really pan out that way. But, no one tells him stick to sports. No one's told him that.
Right.
I did
Exactly.
I did want to say one
Drink it
other
to that.
thing, because you mentioned the national anthem. We've been talking about that. You probably don't know this. I did not know this until last summer when this was such a big topic when the whole protesting during the anthem came back. But I heard this on ESPN radio. Somebody called in and mentioned this. There's a flag code. You know how you treat the American flag, all that stuff. I could not tell you almost anything on that code. The one thing that is in the flag code is it is disrespectful and offensive to hold the flag sideways. Every single NFL, Major League Baseball, wherever you go, when they pull out that flag that's almost as big as the field, they're holding it sideways. Okay. Now, it's not offensive to me. Apparently in flag code it is. But, if you're so, oh, I support the flag and everything behind it, well, then I guess you should be supporting flag code. But it's not like anyone's ever talking about that either. So again, I'm not saying let's go against flag code. I'm just saying if you're against kneeling, which again, that's not against flag code. Just saying.
I just want to say something. Listen, the flag is inanimate. The flag is not made of anything that can feel. Human beings are. If you are worried about the flag, you are worried about the wrong thing. I grew up learning that, growing into this culture that, the red, white, and blue, and God love, I have a lot of friends who are military and they are amazing people. So I'm not trying to change any of my friends or any of the women and men who have sacrificed their lives for our country. Not by any means, but they were really honestly for you and me. They weren't doing inanimate that cannot thank them. And yes, some people's devotion to a flag is ridiculous. And let's just remember that, other countries, you can't even wear a flag. It's disrespectful to use the flag as clothing. And look at our country. We're wearing it all over the place. We have shoes, we have hair ties, we have shirts, shorts. I mean, but the reality is that it's not about a flag. A flag is not worth dying for. Human beings are, and we have clouded our judgment when we make it about something that's inanimate, so again, your racism is showing if you're upset about a damn flag.
Well, what's so interesting is you just see all these people, fighting over these kinds of things. And, don't get me wrong, it was being discussed, but by the time, Trump spoke up and said, oh, those SOBs, fire them. It's like, that's when a lot of people who had no opinion whatsoever, that's when they suddenly got offended because Trump said something. Okay, now I got to, support him. And because he said this, it's a mess. By the way, I brought this up many times, and people always resort to personal attacks. The conversation basically ends when you say this, but um, a soldier was the one who stood next to Kaepernick. He wanted to stand next to Kaepernick while he was kneeling, and Nate Boyer, that's his name. He spoke last summer and said the only offensive kneel I've seen is the one from Derek Chauvin. So I did want to ask you.
Exactly.
Look, you're an author, you're an educator. Let me just say this, because of the political climate we're in today, I am really glad I graduated from college a couple of years ago when I did. And as far as my brother, I mean, he graduated right on time. I seriously could not imagine being in classrooms nowadays. I've been in college classrooms where there was a religious debate, and that drove somebody to tears one time. It's like, I can't imagine what political conversations are like, because I've been in high school classrooms where you do talk about politics, but it's like now I just don't know if you can even have that conversation, because you don't know how that's going to turn out. Because if I was the teacher, I would quickly shut it down. I was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not fighting over any of this, because let's be honest, we know how it's going to end. It's going to end in shouting and cursing and tears and all these kinds of crazy things.
Yeah, and I want to tell you that I'm not in the classroom right now. So I want to just give props to every single educator, whether they're teaching face to face or hybrid or
Yes.
completely virtually. Like, they are amazing. And the teachers who are actually engaging in these conversations with their students are even more amazing. So when I was in the classroom, my students did talk about racism, and they talked about, like, there were fights sometimes about, the white boy trying to be a black, try to dance black, stuff like that. I mean, that was from their mouths. I mean, we had to talk about this stuff, you know. And so to all the educators who are making space for them to talk about this, like, God bless you. You're amazing. You can't get away from this. Kid, this is our life right now. This is what we should be learning about. And we should be learning how to talk with people without, like, wanting to punch them in the face because they believe differently than us. And as a society, we are doing a disservice away from that. Even I need to work on that, because every time you said Trump, I want to just, like, vomit on the floor. And here's the thing: I have lost, I don't know how many friends in the last few years, because they're too loud. They're getting loud and distracting me. But I need to be better about that as well. We need to, I have been dumped. I was dumped by one of my best friends in a text message. Well, I thought she was one of my best friends, earlier this school year, because I said that I was voting for not Trump, And so anyway, I didn't even know that this person felt that strong. I'm like, I have never changed from who I am online or face to face. I am the same. But I have lost a lot of friends, even close friends, family members. They don't want, they steer clear. They can like my husband's, social media, but they steer clear of mine because I'm too vocal, even though he believes almost exactly the same way I do. He just doesn't express it as much. It's like, we can't have any sort of disagreement and still support one another. And
No, I mean, it is kind of annoying, because by the way, if your kids are, making noise or whatever, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Trust me.
it's distracting my brain. I don't need any more.
Okay, fair enough. You keep muting yourself, and like, you're still in mid sentence. I don't know if you realize that.
No, because I'm trying to put my thoughts together. I shouldn't even be drinking my bourbon or whatever, and I'm trying to be serious, and I'm hearing my kids talk, and yeah.
Look, this is not a Sirius XM radio show where professionalism is like. And by the way, if you listen to Sirius XM, there are so many shows on there where it's like the microphone is like this, like, and I have to take off my earbuds just to get my point across. I don't even know how I sound right now, but it's like the microphone is so far away. That is the quality of radio on Sirius XM sometimes. But anyway, I digress. So look, I mean, listen. Like I said, I seriously would not want to be in a high school or a college classroom right now, or even, elementary or middle school. I mean, just the thing, like, kids say a lot of nasty shit, a lot of racist shit. By the way, listen, I don't know what your kids do for fun. I know. How old is your oldest kid?
She's 12.
Okay. I didn't realize that was such a
She's
hilarious
12.
question. I apologize. How old is your
No, I'm laughing at the whole everything.
I'm giving you a hard time. How old is your youngest?
He's 3, and they're exactly 9 years apart. They have the same birthday.
Oh wow. What are the odds of that? Okay, here's what I was gonna say because look, I'm a video gamer. I play video games sometimes. I'm sure you've heard of the game Grand Theft Auto. Um, so the past couple of Grand Theft Autos. See, you're muted, and I could not hear you say yes, but I can read lips at least.
I'm like, thank you. I'm like, shut the door. Like, I'm so sick of hearing them talk. Like, just shut the
No, you're
door.
fine. It's not a big deal. If your kids want to come in, and yeah, I'll say hi to them. No worries. But okay, here's the point I'm trying to make. Like I've played, I play Grand Theft Auto online sometimes. I never use my microphone to talk to other players. I just don't, unless I actually know them. Like DJ and I, we've played a few times. But if you play like these games, like Grand Theft Auto, which is it's rated M for mature for very obvious reasons. If you play Call of Duty online, you can interact with other players. My point is, you know, you can be a 40-year-old and you could be playing with a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, and sometimes they actually butt heads and argue on the microphone, saying a lot of nasty shit to each other. Listen, I've heard arguments online. 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, they know a lot of things. They know every word in the book. They know every insult in the book nowadays. Okay. So it's like, the fact that we're in this crazy political climate where everything has to be politically driven and you have to have all these arguments because, God forbid, you have a rational disagreement on something, everyone just resorts to all these personal attacks. It's like kids really do know a lot of things nowadays. I saw, I can't remember what led to this conversation on Twitter with somebody, but I remember saying, look, kids can get away with a lot of things online. Their parents might not know what they're looking up. And I remember someone tweeted me and said, I know exactly what my kids are seeing online. There's no way they can hide it. I'm like, that's what my parents said. Okay. I've been on some websites. Okay. Look, we've all done it. Let's not act like we never did. Yeah. I mean, listen, my point is kids know so many things nowadays. And in this climate, it's just, it's not healthy in my opinion.
I agree. And and here's the thing, and I like talk to your kids. If you want to raise kids that value humanity, don't shield them from what is going on right now. Like they need to see it. This is their history. This is their life as well. And if you are a believer that we should be unified, that we should have equality under the eyes of the law and under the eyes of each other, then talk about it. This is not age. This is not age appropriate. I don't know what it's like. This is their world too. They need to know what's going on. I see a lot of people trying to shield their kids all the time. And just like you said, even we don't allow our kids to be on devices anywhere but where we are. They're not allowed to go downstairs. They have to be in our main living area, and they have to do like their work. They have to do their schoolwork. They have to do their chores, blah, blah, blah. And they still try to get away with all sorts of stuff, and they'll still try to sneak it downstairs. And they do some weird stuff that I've caught them doing. I mean, they know what's going on. Kids are going to be kids. And the thing that we need to do is help guide them as much as possible. They're going to be who they're going to be. But if you value humanity, they're going to value humanity, especially if it's real and it's true and you live that life. Like I probably in some ways am the worst mom. I mean, my mom tells me, I don't know how many times, that I am like the worst mom. She believes that I am mom. So sometimes I think maybe I am. I say a lot of like cuss words in front of my kids. Like they hear it. There's a lot of ways that I could be a better mom. But what that they do know is that I help the homeless. They do know that I care about all lives, especially Black lives and people of color. They see that. They see me living it out. They see me writing about it and doing, things in our community. They know that. That's going to be a part of their upbringing, and they know that I'm going to apologize when I'm wrong. So those are at least things that I can live with. And I can also probably afford the therapy that they need to go to when they're, when it's time. So it's like, be with your kids, let them watch the news, talk about it with your kids. If you're an educator, make space for your students to talk about it. If their parents aren't talking about it with them at home, but it's burning on them and they really want to talk about it, then make that space. This is how we become better as humans, talking about it. Like all the state testing that's going on right now is such bullshit. I want to say that out loud. State testing right now is bullshit. I don't know any person, regular person, that thinks that it's doing anybody any good right now. But making space for students and young people to talk about this would be good.
Oh, hold on, I want to back up because you've alluded to this a couple of times, and I know you kind of dove into this just right now. But I look, I'm 29. I don't have kids. You're a mother of 5.
So young.
How do you and your husband talk to your kids about, what's going on with racism, and how do you explain that? How do you explain the pandemic? Like, how do you discuss these serious issues with your kids? Like, what do you tell them?
Thank you for asking. I tell them the truth. I just spit when I said that. I tell them the truth. Like, I know this isn't popular, but I told them that Santa Claus isn't real. I believe,
When
in
did you tell
Jesus.
them
I
that?
want them to believe in Jesus. I told them that as soon as they freaking asked me to. He was real. Like, I tell them the fucking truth. I'm like, listen, don't go to school and tell all your friends that Santa's not real. Like, you're gonna make a lot of moms mad if you do that. But I'm a Christian. I mean, I hate saying that because Christianity has such a bad name right now, but I believe in Christ. Like, here's the thing. I want my kids to believe in Christ also, but I don't want them to get confused about what is really important. And I've seen parents like die over the fact that their kids, just don't believe in Santa anymore, but they have no relationship with, a faith that they also value. I mean, I'm going to choose what's right. I don't care if my kids believe in Santa. Here's what I tell them about Santa. I'm like, listen, he's fun. Let's read stories about him. Let's have fun with him and pretend, but he's not real. You know what I mean? This is not why we celebrate this. And then, if you're not sure where to start, because I grew up and you didn't talk a lot about this, like you didn't want to talk about race. You didn't want to talk about racism because we were not racist. We were not, discriminatory. There was nothing wrong with what we were doing. That's how I grew up, and you weren't supposed to talk about it because it was impolite. So if you're not even sure where to start, get books like this. And I love my friend Hedrick. She has this Hedrick name. Oops, Hedrick. She has her own YouTube. She talks about how you can talk about it with kids, but just start being honest. They're smart. Kids know what's going on. If you
Yeah.
listen to if you can remember about what you talked about on a school bus, you know that kids are smart and they know what is going on. Don't lie to them. Stop lying to them. If you want good human beings, start being honest with them. And if you have a faith that you value, start being honest with them about stuff. Stop lying. The thing about it is that I want my kids, like if they grow up and they say, Mom, you really, you you really made me feel bad about myself because you always said this about me. Like if they confront me with that, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm a piece of shit and I'm so sorry. Like I was wrong and I should not have done that. I'm not going to try to justify anything that I did that made my kids feel badly about themselves. Like just be honest about your mistakes. I mean, they say honesty is the best policy. And my husband and I, yes, sometimes we don't agree about how to approach it with kids, but I feel like because there's so much hypocrisy about where I grew up, and about like the faith that I called my own, but the way that was lived out, and just gonna say it's just filled with so many holes. That's why I am the way that I am. Like I want to call that out. I want to talk about it. I want to be honest, and I think that's the best thing when you start having kids. Just be honest with them. That's what's going to make good people.
I just think it's so interesting because
drink to that.
Because I kind of think about that too sometimes. Like, and I'll say this: I have a friend of mine, and I learned some bad news over the weekend with her. She mentioned that she was diagnosed with colon cancer and has 6 months left to live. She's a single mom of a 12-year-old, and so many people were asking her. It's like, what do you even tell your kid? It's like, and I know that's such a different situation when you compare that, but it's like, if you're going to have these conversations, you've got to be, as you said, you've got to be honest. You've got to look at reality and explain what is happening, and don't tell them something else is happening, as brutal as it may be, whether it's a family member diagnosed with cancer, or what's going on in the world today with police brutality and racism and people storming into a Capitol, a pandemic, all so many crazy things. Again, these are all dangerous in different ways, but you can't, yeah, as you said, you can't really hide kids from this. You have to explain why everyone has a mask now when you go out to a Walmart, and hopefully things are getting better. It feels like a lot of things are getting better
Mhm.
in that realm, but yeah, it's so tough. It is when you just have those conversations. I've never thought of it. I mean, growing up, I think the worst thing that may have happened during my childhood was 9/11. And they just
Mhm.
told us in school. It's not like, my parents had to, and it's like, listen, it's everywhere in the news. You see people, getting gas and all these groceries at the time. I'm sure you remember that better than I do. But that's like the worst thing. And that was a terrible thing, but that's the only thing, I should say, not the worst thing. The only thing that I feel like, in terms of terrible things that happened growing up as a kid, I ever had to discover on the news and just talk about with my parents. So it just feels crazy to think about all these things kids are seeing today in the world, and how you got to educate them. And unfortunately, there are some bad educators out there that maybe don't know how to have these conversations with their students. I don't know. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that when you view it that way?
Yeah, so I agree, and I don't want to call them bad educators because I feel like anybody that takes on the role as an educator probably has some good in them. So like even this weekend, I do a broadcast with a couple of my colleagues, Victoria Thompson and Dr. Eileen Winokur, and we do what's called Courageous Conversations in Ed Tech, because that's kind of the world that I live in. We talk about educational technology, and even this weekend it's called Courageous Conversations on Purpose, because you don't know where to start. You come together with people that don't necessarily believe the same way that you do, and you realize that you might not even go away with thoughts of agreement. Like you're just okay with the fact that you've learned something new, that you value somebody else's perspective, even if it's not the same as yours. And I think that's where we have to start, is understanding that even when we see our students come through our door, they aren't living the same life that we lived. They are not seeing life in the same lens that we view life in, and we have to make space. And one of the and I want to say Courageous Conversations is a book called it's by Glenn Singleton, and you can buy that off Amazon. It's an amazing way to approach talking about race and racism in a way that people can actually voice. Like, I don't know where to start. People can say that in all honesty and not be canceled automatically because they don't know that where to start. So um, I would start somewhere there and just educating yourself on that. There is so much out there if you really, really, really want to know the truth, and if you really value learning other people's perspective, and you want to see what life is. There's a lot of books. Again, my friend, she put this out there. This is for kids, but I promise you that an adult could read this and get a lot of value out of that. If And I say this to also teachers, like, if we don't know how to do Google Classroom, we will go to YouTube and figure out Google Classroom. If you want to know how to start conversations about race with your kids, go to YouTube. There's going to be teachers doing it. I do a broadcast and it's on my YouTube, which is bit.ly/MJ McAllister Writes, where people can, listen in, because this is something, and I talk about it in my blog, which is, y'all, come on, my blog, which is he gave me a melody.com, because I talk about the growth that I have. I've had a lot of growth in the last 5 years. And I'm very honest about, sorry, my toddler didn't have a
No,
nap
you're
today. I
fine.
don't know if you
It's
can hear
all
him
good.
crying.
They sound like they're
But
having a good old time.
but I mean, and the thing is, I write about it because I feel like if I can change, anybody can change, and if you want to look that up and you want to find a place to start, you can do that. You can find out how to do anything on the.
You muted yourself early, so I don't know what you said at the end there, but you said a lot of great things. If you
No,
need to step away, for a second, you can do that. I'll hold the fort down here. No, look, I think this has definitely been a really good conversation, because there's a lot happening in the world, and I think, look, here's my thing. It's like, think of the worst thing that's ever happened to you or your family, or whatever. Just think of bad things that have happened, that have impacted you on a personal level. I'm not a very religious person, but I've always believed the man upstairs always has a reason for these things to happen. My biggest thing is with all of these things happening today in our world, like a pandemic, this health pandemic, all this talk about racism, okay, these things that have happened, they can't be undone. Something good has to come out of it now. So, like, for instance, this whole George Floyd thing, I mean, a lot of people are saying that his life needs to matter. And in this case, you know, there was a trial and it took several days, but eventually they got to the bottom of it. And, a lot of people feel like that the jury made the right decision. So something good needed to come out of George Floyd's death. And we saw it in the end there. Um, what are your thoughts on that when you kind of view it from that perspective? Because again, I feel like, when something terrible happens, you can do one or two things. You can make it worse or you can make it better.
Agreed. I mean, you know, here's the thing. I mean, for George Floyd's family, he's gone. I'm sure that they would rather him be here than go through what they're going through right now.
Yeah, of
They're
course.
missing somebody that they loved. Um, I am a person of faith. Yes, I say the F word like nobody's business, but I am a person of faith. I don't know how to live this life outside of my faith. And I don't believe that God is so worried about how many F words I use, like some people think. Like, I believe that he's more concerned about what we're doing with the platform that we have, with the voice that we have, with the influence that we have, and the hearts that we have, and who we're serving. And there is a verse in the Bible that talks about like that God can make all good things, even doesn't matter, like beauty from ashes. He makes everything that is ugly and turns it into something beautiful. And I'm sorry, like, I wish that I used to be so good at Bible verses, but there's a lot that talks about how a faith can, your faith can help you through all of that. And I do believe that we have to make it like something worthwhile. Let's let's not make his death be something in vain, where we make his name a hashtag, or we make it a cause, but we actually do something that it was a sacrifice. It was not a willing sacrifice. He was murdered. And even if you can just get to that point to say that he was murdered, I think you're going in the step in the right direction. His humanity was stolen from him, and it was not deserved. It doesn't matter what you think about him, and it doesn't matter about the mistakes that he made in his life. His humanity was murdered. And so even going in that direction and saying, I don't want this to keep happening to innocent people. Like, the law doesn't protect people of color like it protects me as a white person, and that is not okay. So what can I do? Like, how can I educate myself when I see, all of the cell phones, the people that recorded that, although I didn't watch it to its entirety, because I don't want to see a man die. Like, that's traumatizing. And that was not something keeping people accountable and holding the law accountable. I mean, we did a good job as a people saying that this matters. His life matters. Breonna Taylor's life matters. Everybody that we've lost in the last few years, even the names that we don't know, there's countless lives that have been lost and murdered that we don't even know their names, but there are people
Yeah.
suffering. Today I got to talk about Emmett Till with my kids, and they were like, oh my God. I'm like, and this didn't happen that long ago. This happened the year after your Meemaw was born, you know? So it wasn't that long ago. Like, people are still alive that have seen all of this murder happen. And I forget what your original question is, but
Just
but I
just the fact that
do
when
believe
bad
that
things
God can
happen.
make something good about this.
Yeah.
And I do believe that yeah, we can turn it around. We can use it.
Yeah.
We can be angry. Let's look about why we're angry right now, and examine that. And every single good thing that we ever do starts with the reflection that we have. If we are not able to understand why people are mourning George Floyd, that's personal work. He was a human being. If we can't understand that, it's something that we have to start like inside of our own minds. If we feel like Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group, that's something we have to start thinking about. Why do we think that? Who's told us that? Is it legitimate? Like, can we back up this with like real truth? Or is this just something that has been, told us so that emotional reaction happens. And to really know, like Joe Biden, he's not a perfect man, and Trump wasn't a perfect man. Like there's no political leader that is perfect. But, why do we choose the people that we choose? And why do we hate when we hear a name? I have to examine this all the time. When I hear a certain name, why do I get really angry inside? Like these are things that we have to examine. And the truth is that the beauty can come out of that. It's unfortunate that we have to keep killing people for this to happen. Like nobody's life needs to be snuffed out early so that you and I can believe something different. That's just the shittiest part of it all. Like people, when they see a Black man, they get afraid. I have friends that are Black that say that they even feel programmed that when they see a Black man at nighttime, that they feel afraid. Why are we programmed at such a young age to think that? Because these are our brothers, these are our fellow neighbors. And as a Christian, we are commanded to love our neighbors. God loves our neighbors. Do we think that because we are Republican or we are Democrat that we are somehow better than other people? Like, let's examine those thoughts. And let's and when we get to our own humanity, I truly believe that we can also embrace other people's humanity that don't live like us, that don't look like us, that don't have the same orientation as us or the gender as us, that are different from us. And that is exactly what helped me to come from one extreme to another, because I finally got to the truth of my own humanity where I could finally accept me, that I could accept other people. And that is God in my life. Sorry.
No, that's great stuff. I really appreciate you saying that. I know, listen, some people, when they hear these kinds of things, they get uncomfortable, and these are certainly conversations they're not ready for. But listen, I mean, there have been a lot of things that people have hated to see in the last month and maybe have not enjoyed talking about, but everyone's aware now. You don't have to enjoy talking about these things. People know what's going on, and they know, why these things are being brought to light. It's not like people are just bored and saying, hey, let's make a big deal out of this. No. So look, I mean, today, I think is a step in the right direction. I'm not going to sit here and celebrate and say it's a great day. I do agree with justice and accountability. I mean, that certainly took place. So hopefully it's a big step in the right direction, and we continue doing that. Because here's my thing: like, if we just go back and turn around and just go back to the way things were before, then today's for nothing, in my opinion. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hey, listen, before we go, and my internet's kind of going up and down. I know you've been cutting in and out a little bit, so I do want to wrap this up soon. I'm really happy for you and proud of you. You've done such a great job with your book. You've expanded now the I'm Sorry story, which I promise I'm going to read. I have not read a single book this year. That is embarrassing. It's been a rough year for me. And that in reading a book, I'm not like an avid reader, but I read a few books a year. This year I've been terrible about it. I promise your book, it is sitting next to my bed. I swear, your book, Stephen Knott's book, Jason Brown's book, which I've read part of, haven't read the whole thing. They're all sitting next to my bed. Anyway, one cool thing about your book is you have now expanded, and your book is now also available in Spanish, which I think is awesome. Like,
it is.
You can now just reach out to a completely different country in this, which is awesome. I don't know how many people get to say that. Can you talk about how you were able to expand? Yes, there's the book right there for those listening to the video version of the podcast, and there is the Spanish version. Yes. Can you talk about how that came to fruition, and what is it like having your book available in Spanish now?
Well, thank you. You are such a sweet. This is why you're my brother, because I love you so much. But I don't want this book next to your. Yes, I don't want this book next to your bed. Put it in the bathroom. So whenever you have like your longest moment in the bathroom.
Oh, okay. As you throw your book away.
Pick that book up. It's a children's book, for crying out loud. It takes like 15 minutes. Oh, so you can read this in the bathroom. Okay, Farzin, okay. Freaking read the book. But here, my good friend, Nicole Biscotti, that's her name right there. She is an amazing woman. I love her. she has another book out that I've also, if you ever tune into my book chats, she wrote this book right here, I Can Learn When I'm Moving, which is another great book. But she translated this into Spanish, and it's been incredible. You can find it at bit.ly/I'm sorry story Spanish. And it's been absolutely incredible. And I want to say thanks to EduMatch, because they're the publishing company that I work for, but also that translated this and paid for it all, of course. And so it was such a wonderful thing. And the cool thing is, if you see the font, do you see how it's kind of a weird font? Do you see it's weird?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a dyslexia font. And this is a font that was made by somebody who has dyslexia. And even the English version also has this font, it's dyslexia. Because when I was in the classroom, I can't tell you how many kids that I taught that found out that they were dyslexic when they were in the 5th grade. I mean, it's unreal. And my whole point is, now that I'm doing better as a human being, like, to be as inclusive as possible. So I wrote this using kids of all colors. And then I wanted to also include my dyslexic readers. So, and then now I get to also include my Spanish readers. And one of the biggest joys of sharing my book with others is, like, I have got to talk with people, with kids, young people all over the world, from kindergarten to 8th grade. It's been such an amazing time getting to read my book with people virtually and talk about it. And this has everything to do with my message. Like, we all make mistakes. We are human beings. We can learn how to appreciate each other better, and how to be inclusive. So it's been an incredible feeling to have this translated into Spanish. It's not something that I've taken for granted. So thank you for bringing this up and putting a spotlight on it. I really appreciate it, because I love this story. It came from my heart. I feel like it came from me as an educator and a mom, and as, just a kid struggling, because nobody said they were sorry to me when I was growing up. And if a sorry was told to me, it was always like, sorry. Like, I didn't learn how to apologize to people meaningfully until I was older. I had never heard a meaningful apology until I was older. And so that was always a mission that I had with the students that I taught and with my own personal children.
Well, there you go. That is the I'm Sorry story. Where can everyone get it?
You can get it at bit.ly/I'm sorry story, and that's all low caps and no spaces. And you can get the Spanish version by my wonderful friend Nicole Biscotti translated at bit.ly/I'm sorry story Spanish, all low caps, all together, no spaces.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Melody, thank you so much. It's always fun talking to you. I think the last time I talked to you, like in this setting, was that Super Bowl Eve party, which was a lot of fun, but 24 hours after the fact, not so much. But we don't need to get into that. No, in all seriousness, thank you so much for coming on. I always look forward to talking to you. I know we'll do this again in a couple of months, so we'll keep in touch, and we'll definitely have you back on. In the meantime, go check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/Melody McAllister. You can check out.
Actually, it's facebook.com/MJ McCallie Writes. With 2 L's.
I'm glad you said that. I apologize. So there you have it. Go follow her on Facebook. Check out her live broadcast on there. She does a lot of great things on there. Has so many different guests that come on her live broadcast. So check all of that out. Melody, thank you so much. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
All right. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Farz Cast, share this on social media. Share the links with your friends. Let them know about the podcast. Share the links. We're all over the internet. Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Pandora, Amazon. Any place where you can listen to a podcast, we are there. So check it out. Subscribe to the podcast. Share the links with your friends. Share them on social media. Until then, talk to you guys next week. The NFL draft's coming up. Got a couple of guests that I'll be talking to before and afterwards. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, normally I don't reveal this, but I am very excited because sometime in the month of May, Shane Bishop, the producer for Dateline NBC, he'll be joining me on the podcast. That's going to be a lot of fun. And my friend Eddie Law, who is part of the Believe Podcast Network, does all kinds of things, NFL, college football, UFC. He's going to be on with me Sunday to recap UFC 262. I think it's 262. I can't even remember the number. Oh, as Melody has her signs up, I was actually looking on a different screen. I didn't know you were doing any of that. But nonetheless, I appreciate everyone listening. Got some exciting podcasts coming up. Tune in for those. Until then, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.